From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Tiger Cats Game Day with Bubba O'Neill and Courtney Stephen.
When the CFL announced a 14-game COVID-shortened season, it was expected that the divisional races would be exciting. In the East, what drama as the old rival Tiger Cats meet the Argos with number one in the East on the line. Welcome to Tiger Cats Game Day. He's former Ticats defensive back turned analyst Courtney Stephen. I'm Bubba O'Neill. Holy Mackinac, number 22. What excitement tonight at BMO Field.
It's always fireworks when the Argos are playing home to the Tiger Cats. I'm looking forward to this one. The trip down to QEW was the first drama of the week. They weren't sure if the GO train was going to be up, if it was going to be down, but they called the GO train up off the IR, and it's going to be there for the lights. It's exciting, and I'm ready for it.
As we do here on Game Day, we're going to look at different aspects of the game, obviously look at both teams, examine the head-to-head battles, and, of course, Court, who is undefeated in his predictions, will continue to try to stay that 100%. Let's take a look at the lineup, and I think right out there like a big sore thumb for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, no Don Jackson, 200 yards rushing in his last two games, 56 yards receiving. He's got the groin injury. But as the head coach will say, and the team will say, next reality.
Honestly, it was exciting to watch Don Jackson over the last couple of games. He's definitely somebody who can bring some spice to the field. He adds a different dimension to that offense. He's an explosive player. But in the CFL, it's really a game of depth. The rosters aren't as big as they are in college or in other leagues. So you have to have guys who are high quality. You could do a lot of different things for you. I think that's what you have in Sean Thomas Erlington. He's a guy who's played in this league and done well. And so it's going to be another opportunity for him to get back on the saddle and really tote the ball the majority of the times.
Darius Sirocco is center out for a second straight week. But boy, I'll tell you, I had some concerns about the offensive line. They might have put in their best performance last week against BC with that reworked offensive line. Darius Sirocco is a great offensive lineman, but again, they've played well as a unit all year long with different people playing different positions.
Oh, a ton of different lineups. It's like Yahtzee. Every time you go, it's just, you're going to get Brandon Revenberg and four other guys. It's good to see Chris Van Zyl back, somebody who can really be an anchor to that outside edge. And then they get Yarborough back, who's somebody the coaching staff is really excited about. So it will be a key to victory for the Ticats to protect the quarterback. They have a great explosive offense, but they do give up more sacks than Toronto. And that's one thing of note, especially considering that Toronto defense does a good job of putting pressure on the quarterback. That's a recipe for, potential trouble. So we'll see how they're able to manage the pocket. I think part of that comes down to the fact that Jeremiah Masoli would rather take the sack sometimes instead of making an errant throw. And that shows up in his completion percentage and the lack of interceptions. But nonetheless, you got to win a field position battle. And if you get a sack on first down, it's very hard to complete second and long in the CFL. So I'll be watching the offensive line to see how they gel and how they play from early on in this one.
Well, that offensive line of the Ticats, I think they might benefit, and we don't know why. Now, his numbers aren't as big as they have been all for many other seasons in his career, but Charleston Hughes can certainly put pressure on the quarterback and cause havoc on the offensive lines. For unknown reasons, he won't be playing.
Yeah. And you know what? That's a big hit for the Argos, but I would say there's one player who, I don't know if he's an unsung hero, but last game you had Cordero Law, who's a veteran of the CFL, step up and have a huge performance in what could have easily been a loss if it weren't for 3 or 4 plays going the other way in the Argos' favor. Cordero Law had 5 tackles, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble last game. He plays on that defensive end. He's somebody who not only can be an impact inside the box, but he can have the range to get out to that sideline, run past those receivers who are blocking the DBs, and really inside out make plays on those flat routes and those screen passes and those tosses. So he's somebody I'm looking to see Chris Van Zyl and Cordero Law go head to head. That's going to be a clash of titans, something that I'm excited to watch play out.
And Law's got the unusual body type. He's only going at about 6'1", 250, 255, 260. Not really the big, tall, rangy pass rusher, like more of like a bowling ball.
Man, he's got a motor. And I'll tell you, he's a veteran leader, one of those guys who he makes it tough for you to play undisciplined. When you're in the same locker room as Cordero Law, I had some time to spend in the same locker room with him, on the same lineup with him when I was in Calgary. And, he's just a guy who brings his hard hat and lunch pail to work every day. He hustles. There's no excuses when you're on the field with him. So he's a guy who is definitely worth taking a peek at that D line and seeing what he's up to. He's going to be stirring up some havoc.
DJ Foster returned to the lineup to run the ball for the Toronto Argonauts. They lose White, who was their leading rusher technically. Is that just a trade-off either way?
I mean, you got to give credit to Johnny White Shoes, a.k.a. Juan Blanco, a.k.a. John White the Fourth. I mean, he's a player in this league he's been able to do a lot of different things, whether it was with Edmonton, with Hamilton, or with the Argos. He's bounced around and he suffered with a lot of injuries over his career. But whenever he was in the lineup, he was an impact player. So you never want to see a guy go down with an injury that possibly could have been like a recurring injury he had dealt with in the past. But it's definitely a hit for them because, he's somebody who makes an impact and he plays with emotion. That kind of stuff rubs off on a team like Toronto, who's trying to build momentum. You need those guys who are going to lift up the teammates. I think it's definitely a big hit that John White won't be playing.
With Foster, do you get anything different? And I know everyone talked about he's a former NFLer and he's had some big impact runs, but again, I think consistency's maybe been his issue.
Yeah. And, with all due respect to him, like he'll be a guy who'll fit in and he'll do his thing. Maybe he'll prove me wrong and be, outstanding. But I was more impressed with AJ Ouellette, who came in the game when John White was hurt. And this guy rushed for 100 yards. And I mean, he's a guy who really just took the opportunity that was granted to him. And he, well, for lack of a better word, ran with it, and made the most of that opportunity. So I think that's a credit to the offensive line over there in Toronto and a credit to their coaching staff for having guys prepared to hop in on a moment's notice. So I'm looking forward to seeing, offensive lines on both sides, who's going to establish the run. But let's be honest, the Ticats and the Argos, they've played close games in these last couple matchups. In this one, if it gets away early from either team, we're not going to see too much running. We're going to see McLeod Bethel-Thompson and Jeremiah Masoli airing that thing out. And that's kind of what I'm looking forward to.
Let's take a look at our trends. And we've talked about the Tiger Cats rolling. They've won 3 straight games at this point right now. And a lot has to do with the offense. You talked about Jeremiah Masoli at times, protecting the football. He's now gone 5 straight games without an interception. When he's spreading the ball around, he's been hitting on anywhere from 7 to 9 different receivers. I think this has a lot to do with what's going on with this team right now.
Outstanding performances by Jeremiah stacked on top of each other week over week. I think it was great to see Speedy B get back in the mix. He's extended his streak of, I think, his 54 straight games with at least 1 catch. So he's somebody you could rely on. Even if he's a little bit banged up and injured, he's still a major threat at 80% healthy compared to anybody else's 100% healthy. And then, of course, going across the board, you got Dunbar Jr., Jalen Acklin, who is, in all rights, a big play receiver. He's got long receptions. He's got the speed to catch it and turn it upfield. And then you got, Tim White, who I think has been outstanding this season for them. So there's a lot of threats and it makes it hard to game plan because there's no real one guy who, if you shut him down, you give yourself a great chance to win. Yes, you can say Brandon Banks is that explosive player, but you know what? If he's only making 1 or 2 catches a game, you got other guys who are ready to step up. That makes it so much easier to be a quarterback like Jeremiah Masoli because you can trust in people, no matter who they are. That if they just get to the right spot, they're going to do their job.
And you're right on that. Banks did lead in the BC game, 6 receptions, 8 targets, 75 yards, 1 touchdown. Is it fair to say though that if Masoli and Banks get going, that is a threat for the defense because there is some trust there between those two? And as you talked about, there are other playmakers, but if Banks and Masoli become what we've seen them in the past, in 2018, even Dane Evans in 2019. That's chaos for any defense.
Yeah, that's unfair. Let's just be honest. When in Banks is rolling, you don't have the coverage in your playbook to stop 4-4-4-3. I should not even disrespect Brandon Banks and say 4-4. I am sorry. He is a pure speed 4-3 guy, tops. And when he's rolling
at 31 years old.
Yes, listen, if you warm up them hamstrings, if you get in that hot tub, if you get on that foam roller and let him get rolling, I have no doubt in my mind that he's a 4-3 player. I'll put him up against pretty much anybody in this league, the lucky Whiteheads. I don't know who else is even in that caliber of speed between those two guys right there. They're people who can give your best DB windburn, as coach likes to say. So if they get rolling, it's going to be a problem. And I think one thing that's going to help Brandon Banks get his mojo going is the fact that he's also returning kicks. Frankie Williams still out of the lineup. And now with Banks back there, again, getting more touches of the football, it gives you a chance to see the field, get that first hit, shake off the rust a little bit, and then, potentially get into your vibe, get into that mojo of the game. Because, man, Brandon Banks has been here before. He's a big play guy. And when big play guys get in big games like this one, the Ticats need to bust this open early. If they leave it too close into the end, I'm sorry, but they are not looking good in close games. They have to win by a lot. And I know we'll get to the prediction at the end, but let's talk about these last three games. They both have beaten Ottawa and BC. Okay. The third game that was different was Hamilton played Edmonton, a struggling team, beat them the way they're supposed to. And Montreal played against Toronto, and Montreal beat Toronto pretty decent, pretty handily. And so what we're seeing here is teams that, we're both fighting for this top spot in the East, but the Argos, 4 games over 500, are -22 in a point differential. Like, they've allowed more points than they forced, and they're 4 games over 500. So I think that the Ticats need to apply some serious pressure and really find out if the Argos are who they say they are, and not make this a close game, and not feed into the headlines of, they've beat them the last 2 out of 3 times, and really just force the issue. If they really want to take this first place, they're going to have to go out and grab it.
Well, let's look at things from the Argonauts side of things. And you're right. They're 8-6 right now. They've won 4 of their last 5 games overall. But adding to what you were getting at, they've had 6 wins by 3 points or less, including 2 against Hamilton. I mean, there is something to be said about knowing how to win the close games.
Yeah. And to be fair, a win is a win. And no matter how you get it, no one's going to look back and say if it was a pretty win or an ugly win or a close win or a big win. It's just a W, right? So hats off to them for getting those wins. But let's think about it. In BC, they almost gave the game away on mismanagement of the clock, and then in Ottawa, if Ottawa doesn't take a penalty on that big return that they had that brought them back into their own end and flipped the field and completely changed the momentum of the game, then Toronto goes out and has an explosive fourth quarter. Who knows how that one ends up? So when you're a team who is kind of, in close games, it's decided by penalties, turnovers, and 3 or 4 plays. All I'm saying is the recipe to win this game is don't take penalties, don't turn over the ball, and be on the right side of those 3 or 4 plays. And if you're able to open up a lead early, then it doesn't even come down to that, because I think these are 2 different teams than they were when they last met.
In the Argonauts' last 2 games, their field goal kicker, Boris Beatty, is 10 for 10 in terms of field goal kicking.
Boris Beatty is a weapon, an absolute weapon. Whether he's kicking field goals, I know that he has 6 field goals over 50 yards, and apparently the record is 8 on the season. This guy is just got a cannon leg. He can hit it from all over. And when you can get points from midfield, look at the confidence that gives to your offensive coordinator. On 2nd and long, you can really go for it and try and get it, because if you don't get the first down, you can still score points. Even on the kickoffs, he's starting opponents way further back than the average kickoff. So he's a weapon, and honestly is going to be a battle of the kickers because, Bertolet hasn't necessarily had that same impact. I think it's in him because, Jeff Reinbold holds his players to the highest of standards, and he wouldn't be there if he wasn't capable, but we need to see it from him. And I think today is one of those days where it may be a battle of the kickers.
But I guess I'll dig deeper here. But if you've kicked 10 field goals over 2 games, isn't that a problem on the offense? Your offense isn't clicking, or I just don't know how to take that. And,
No,
you're right about Beat. He's got the strong leg and his accuracy is 14 to 16 out of his last 16. The guy's been unbelievable. But I don't know. You're kicking all these field goals. Aren't you supposed to get in the end zone?
And that's what I'm saying is that, the Argos are winning games, but they're squeaking by. It's not like they're coming out here and dominating teams and really asserting their will. They don't have that in them, or they haven't shown that to be able to, win in 3 phases of the game. Their defense has been making plays when they need to. Their special teams has been scoring when the offense couldn't finish the job. And I think the big threat is, does McLeod Bethel Thompson really get clicking? I think right now he's a 61.9% passer. So he's okay. That's really nothing to write home about. Jeremiah Masoli is up around 73%, which is, almost 10 points higher. So when you're looking at the 2 offenses, you're looking at, Jeremiah coming off 300-yard games in a row, whereas McLeod's been kind of up and down, but he's getting some weapons back. And I think, with the return of a guy like Jawan Brescison in the last couple of weeks and finally working him into the rotation, the emergence of a guy like Curly Gittins Jr., you got DeVaris Daniels. Really, you pretty much, you almost got the whole 2019 or 2018 Calgary Stampeders receiving core. But that's for another discussion. But they've got weapons. And I think if they can get in a rhythm, we've seen McLeod do some really impressive stuff, but it's the consistency and it's really getting in a rhythm. Guys like Ricky Collins Jr., you want to see him step up and be an explosive impact player. But it just has to be all of them at the same time. And I think that is what it takes for the Argos to blow this one open and claim first place in the East.
Well, when you talk about Bethel Thompson, 4 touchdowns thrown, 10 interceptions in his last 5 games. That normally gets quarterbacks benched. But he seems to have these little the third quarter, he throws for 200 yards of his 300 yards, or, he throws for 187 and 150 all comes in one quarter. Is he a journeyman? Is he a gunslinger? Is he a winner? I don't know what to make of this guy.
He shows flashes of brilliance. You can't deny it. I remember the first game he played in the CFL. It was like he constructed some amazing comeback and he was throwing like sideline darts that you just couldn't believe it. But it's the consistency thing again. Some great coaches have told me it's not about making amazing plays. It's about making good plays every single time you go out there. And that's the true mark of greatness. So for him, it's really been a thing of, if you're going to get sacked, just get sacked. Don't throw it into coverage and give up a turnover that's going to put your team in a bad situation. But to his credit, he's there. He's the guy. He's the one who's going to be under center or in the CFL in the shotgun, receiving that ball from the center. I think that if they still had Nick Arbuckle, then potentially, there's a little bit more pressure on him to show up because there's a highly qualified guy who's done it already right behind you. But now it's like Antonio Pipkin. Yes, he's played in this league, but he's never been the guy the way that Arbuckle has. And I don't think that the coaching staff necessarily wants to put their eggs all in Pipkin's basket. So it's on McLeod Bethel Thompson to step up and be who they think he can be.
Let's look at our head-to-head situation, and let's take you right back into your days as a player. You've beaten a team 32-19, but you've lost to them 17-16 and 24-23. What kind of confidence do you go into tonight's game with?
You know what? It's one of those things where you, in your mind, you lay your head on the pillow at night after those games and you see these same plays haunting you over and over again. And you might have been playing corner on a rushing play and maybe you got blocked to the outside and they cut in and then somebody else missed a tackle, but you're thinking to yourself, maybe if I could have just shed that block and dove and grabbed his shoelaces, I would have been able to make a play that changed the game. Everybody is having that moment of reflection to say, what could I personally have done in a 1-point game to sway the outcome the other direction? So losing close, it's way more bitter. It puts you in the weight room doing that one extra rep. It has you watching that extra 15 minutes of film because you feel like you should have won. And I think there's a lot of confidence on both sides here. The team that won, Argos, they know that they can do it. So they're coming in guns blazing. And the Ticats, the team that lost 2 in a row, is really here to prove something, knowing that if 2 or 3 plays go the other way, they're more than capable of winning that game. So I'm excited to see. The very first quarter is going to dictate the tempo. Both coaches are going to be gunning for it. They don't want to wait till the last minute, because in the last minute, I'm going to tell you the truth, it's not looking good for the Ticats.
Before we get to your prediction, one of the opportunities for the Tiger Cats to play on natural grass, is that a big deal considering most of these teams in the CFL play on the artificial stuff?
Yeah, I think playing on grass is actually a lot more forgiving on the body. I think that for a lot of us, it's what we grew up playing on. But the thing about Toronto is the end zones. And I know it's been said, it's well documented that the end zones are not the same surface as the regular field, goal line to goal line. So you have to, change your footwork as you're transitioning into the end zone. As a defensive back, if you try to set your feet down quickly and plant, you may slip because the ground in the end zone, the surface is hard and your cleats aren't going to stick into the ground. So you might have to motor or pedal a little bit before you can get out of your break. So the advantage is to the receiver when you're transitioning from the grass to the turf. And to be quite honest, it's something that all of the players hate. Even the guys on offense who can use it to their advantage, I think they'd rather be somewhere where they don't have to think about these theatrics. They can just run their routes and do what they've always done as a kid. But aside from the fact that the end zone is a different surface than the middle of the field, grass is usually better to play on for the body. But we'll see if that's a factor. If you score from midfield and you're outrunning people, then you don't have to think about that kind of stuff. It's when you're backed up on your own 2-yard line, or if you're going in from the 5-yard going in, that's when it becomes a factor. So you can take care of that by just scoring on big plays.
Well, but I just want to hammer that one more time on you. As a wide receiver, though, because I know that these surface differences are there, will they try to play tricks on DBs this way?
100%, 100%. They will run and break that route off exactly as the DB's backpedal is transitioning from the grass to the turf, or they'll do things like running crossing patterns where you have to run through traffic and manage your balance while, navigating between flying bodies. So it's harder for you to keep up with the receiver. And, I don't think that they put so much emphasis on it that they get away from being who they are and doing what they do. But when the opportunity comes, there's always 3 to 4 plays that a coach keeps in his back pocket for a special situation. If they end up, let's say 10 to 5-yard line, there is a play for that in the playbook, and you can guarantee that you're going to see it.
They're saying that this is going to be a sellout, and I think it's one of these COVID. They're keeping people socially distanced in this game, or at least in this stadium. I'm just going to predict here that if there's 15,000 people there, at least half will be Ticat fans. At least. That's a plus for Hamilton, isn't it?
Bubba, that Toronto is Hamilton's second home. They have fans who love to travel. They love to go down to the BMO Field and grab a corn dog and some popcorn and a tall boy and watch these rivals. I mean, they've played hundreds of games together, and it's just another opportunity to see it live. So you can bet that there's going to be a lot of black and gold jerseys in those stands. But, credit to the Argos. They got a really nice facility over there. And so as a player, it's fun to play there. The lights, they shine different in Toronto. It's always an opportunity to make big plays when you're in the big city. So I expect this game to be everything that it's made out to be, whether it's a small margin of victory for either team or a big margin of victory. I expect there to be a lot of heart put out there because of what's on the line. First place teams tend to go to the Grey Cup. And so when you're playing for that bye week, you're playing for that extra game check, you're playing for an opportunity to go and get a ring. I expect people to be laying their body on the line, flying around and trying to become the next great superstar in the CFL.
And you're right on that. The statistics do prove that the team that does get that bye and host the East final, the percentages are massive that you're going to the Grey Cup. Because I'll be honest here, Montreal to me can beat both of these teams. And if you are the Argonauts or Hamilton hosting the Montreal Alouettes, you better strap it on because it's going to be a hard physical game. And if you're that team that's sitting there with getting ready to host the East Championship, you're hoping those two teams clobber each other pretty good.
Yeah, and there's no denying that when you get to be in your home locker room before a game, it's way better because you have the amenities, you have your own hot tub, your own shower, your own locker, you have all of the things that you're used to. You got your player room, you can go sit down on a couch, get your mind right. And it's not necessarily that you have to wake up in a hotel the same way how it is when you're on the road. So any advantage that you can get heading into a big game, you want that. Not to say that there aren't road warriors who can go and travel and make it happen, but, you know, why not play in front of your home crowd? Whichever team wins this game, they're going to have a huge advantage in the playoffs. And once you're in, it's a brand new season. All you got to do is win the next game to keep your hopes alive. So it's exciting to see. My close matchups that I'm watching, I got two of them. Chris Van Zyl, Cordero Law. It's going to be like, man, like, I don't even know, Godzilla versus Rodan. It's going to be two big men just going at each other's neck. And I'm sure that there will be a little bit of a chippiness there because these guys have played for a long time. I'm sure this is not the first, second, or third time that they've met. So it'll be a good matchup there. And then also the kickers, you know, Bertolet and Bede. Man, it's been close games in the past. I don't want to see a close game here because, quite frankly, I want to see fireworks. I want to see high-flying big scores. I want to see guys like Juwan Breskinson making those one-handed catches that he's known for. I want to see guys like Brandon Banks showing off that speed, showing us that he's healthy. I want to see all of that kind of stuff. But if this game is close, and look, call it what you will, if this game is close, the Ticats are not going to win. They need to score early and score often. If it's a big margin of victory, Ticats win. If it's a close game, Argos win.
Well, then let's put your money where the mouth is in, my friend. Prediction time. Go ahead. You set the table. I don't just say a word.
No, here's what it is. I believe that based on how the last 4 games have gone, meaning since the Argos beat Hamilton by 1 point and what that's done for the trajectory of either of their seasons, I feel like Hamilton is trending up. Their offense is clicking. They're starting to get things really solid. You know, the defense is starting the same guys for a second week in a row. I think that stuff matters at this time of year. And with that kind of momentum, carrying it into a team where you're looking at all the numbers and saying, yeah, they're good, but I think we might be a little better, coach. I think that's what the locker room is saying. I think that's what the Ticats are saying. I don't see this one being a close game. I think that they come out early. Tommy Condell cooks up some magic. They're going deep. They're going for the jugular, and they're going for that first place run. So they've already secured a playoff spot. If the Ticats win today, they're going to secure a home game. And then if they win again next week against Sask, or if the Argos lose next week, then the Ticats have opportunity to get that first place. That's what's on the line. I think the Ticats win this one big. It's not even close.
Folks, this is a huge day for you, the CFL football fan, and we have you completely covered on the Ticats Audio Network. Join us at 6:30 for the pre and half post game show with Louis B and Andy Fantus. They're gonna have a bevy of guests to break it down at halftime as well, and of course in your post game talking about a big Tiger Cat win. Of course, the main course, the game itself with RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker. And a reminder: this game and the rest of Week 15 will be under the magnifying glass on Monday with myself and the panel on the CFL this week. You can catch all of this content on the Tiger Cats Audio Network, on your favorite podcast catcher, and of course, YouTube. Like and subscribe. We like it when you do that. For Courtney Stephen, I'm Bubba O'Neill, and this has been Tiger Cats Game Day. Peace.